Welcome to the Is He Really Selling edition of Sharing Sox. I'm duty geezer Leigh Allan, and with me my son and West Coast correspondent Will. We are recording this the morning after The Athletic wrote a story, unsourced, someone knowledgeable of this situation but not allowed to talk about it, that Jerry Reinsdorf is open to selling the White Sox, and also that a group led by Dave Stewart, of all people, is the possible buyer, or a possible buyer. Certainly, once the information comes out, you'd think others would inquire. It's really, and the story then spread everywhere. I mean, every sports, anything, Chicago, national, whatever. And the question is it for real, or is this Jerry being Jerry again and trying to shake down Illinois politicians, which is, I guess, what's your guess looking at it?
So it's interesting because you have this horrendous season end. You get this letter. Remember the letter from Reinsdorf that happened at the end of the year? That was, we let you down. We got to do better. We did all this. Our fans are the most important thing. Blah blah blah. Then you have this article come out. I am not a conspiracy theorist at all. Like, I really am not. I just don't buy into conspiracies. I think this is so not legit that it's not a conspiracy. I think he has zero intention of selling this team. I think this is completely a ploy. I think the letter, I think there is probably, he is in a room where he's got some, poor young guy chained to the wall, and the guy chained to the wall has one of those bulletin boards with red string that he's connecting to all these things. And I think one says, like, send fake, sappy, heartfelt letter to fans at end of year, post to Instagram, leak possibility of selling the team to The Athletic, so that I think it's all a ruse. I'm in complete agreement with you. I think it's all a ruse to try to get this money and get the politicians on his side and pretend that he cares about what's going on here, which is a step in the right direction, pretending to care. But I will say, I don't buy for 1 second that this is a legitimate, I'm ready to sell this team and move on and put it in the hands of someone who can do great things with it. No, this article, unsourced, comes out because he's got a plan. And he is doing a workaround to try to get this money, to get taxpayer money, to get this stadium. There is zero part of me that thinks Jerry Reinsdorf thinks his ego can handle not getting this new ballpark under his name. I just don't think anything. He's very, not to get political, but he's Trumpian in that manner. And I do think that he is absolutely not going to part with this team under any sort of real, thoughtful, emotionally driven circumstance. I think it's a ruse. I think it's a ruse to get more money.
I think it is too. And but we've always, and not enough people mention this, but it's the taxes is what it's always been about. Not selling. I mean, he's lost interest in this team long ago.
Yeah.
But there's huge capital gains taxes, even if he only owns 19%, which is the best guess, and he hasn't refuted that. So he owns, let's say, a fifth of the team. It's worth $2 billion. So he would get $400 million. But I'm sure anybody who wrote this up, established this company so that he and he alone has a say over absolutely everything it does. None of the other stockholders, nobody in the board, they have no say. It's all him, even though he owns a very small part of the team. He probably also has written in there that at the time of sale, because he's gone to the trouble of running the team, he gets not just his 20%, but, $200 million off the top or $500 million off the top before we divvy it up among the stockholders. I would not be surprised in the least if that's the circumstance. He is an incredibly greedy man. But it's interesting he's gone so far not selling the team because there would be a lot of capital gains taxes to pay. And I don't know about dividend recapture on this thing to do with players. Depreciation recapture on how players are depreciated. I don't know if that's all happens when the player leaves the team or whatever. But at any rate, he would at least have the capital gains. Yes, if somebody offered him $500 million above market price, which would more than cover the taxes that he has to pay on his share, I'm sure he'd take it. But if you're for real, you do what the Polans did in Minnesota just days before. They go out and hold a press conference and say, yes, we are open to selling the team. We're very disappointed in what's been happening. People are unhappy with us. Unfortunately, we have the TV deal we've really been screwed on and we're losing money there. So we're open and we have some potential buyers that we've talked to right out in the open. This thing leaking to the Athletic. Why the Athletic?
Yeah.
The woman who wrote the piece, presumably she's the one with the secret source. I mean, she's an experienced baseball writer, but she's not from Chicago or otherwise have some ties that would indicate that the White Sox would leak, or she's not from Oakland where Dave Stewart might leak, or Nashville that he might leak about. Her background is all on the East Coast. Why would you leak to this woman? Why would anybody involved? Maybe there's, I can see somebody in the White Sox organization leaking because they'd like to keep their jobs, whatever it may be. And they'll let but wouldn't you leak to the Trib? And I could even see it national instead of local, maybe, because if you leak to the Trib, then the Sun-Times is ticked off and vice versa. The radio and the TVs are ticked off. But I mean, Bob Nightingale is the usual source here that you leak to. Which tells you it's not Reinsdorf himself who's leaking it, because it would have gone to Nightingale. But it just
depends. It depends. Again, not a conspiracy theorist, but I do think I agree with everything you're saying. This getting leaked to the Athletic, to someone not really connected to Chicago. You leak it to the Tribune, you leak it to the Sun-Times. Somebody's got to answer some questions. Somebody's going to dig deeper. Somebody's going to really get up in your grill about what's going on here. You leak it to a not connected person in the Athletic. It gives the guise of something real is happening when something real might not be happening. I think it's the little guy chained up in the room who is moving like, we should leak it to. Should we leak it on Twitter? No, let's leak it to this person at the Athletic. I don't buy for a second that this isn't part of some strategy that Reinsdorf is a part of. I think you don't leak to Nightingale because then it comes off as, because of his connection, it comes off as being credible and potentially a real thing that's happening. I think if you leak to a non-connected person in the Athletic, you don't really have to answer many questions about this. You don't have to.
Not even the person who was in town to follow the losses at the end of the season and dig into the team and do interviews with players and all that kind of stuff. Not that person.
There are so many sources you could have gone to if this was legitimate, and I'm not buying for a second that this is an actual attempt whatsoever to sell this team. I think it's a strategic play.
Stewart is real tight with La Russa. They, between them, destroyed the Diamondbacks for a decade. And Arizona only recovered after they were kicked out. Stewart also has been talking Nashville before. It had nothing to do with the White Sox. So if there was an expansion team, he wanted to head a group to do that. So I think you want Nashville. If you're Reinsdorf, you want Nashville in the conversation.
Yeah.
You've got a buddy of La Russa's here who, why not?
Totally.
We'll say, totally. We've talked. And they may have. I mean, La Russa's there, right in the middle. And if Jerry says, boy, I don't know, man. I'm getting really tired of this. So La Russa tells his buddy Dave. And Dave says, well, geez, maybe I should check into this. And there we are. We've had discussions.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
I think it could even be, hey, Tony, I'm going to leak this thing and I'm going to use your buddy's name so that there's not an actual potential buyer involved here and legal ramifications that could happen down the road. Like, I think it's all bogus. I think Stewart being a buddy of La Russa's and also the Nashville connection is the exact reason for this. It's just absolute bogus manipulation by Reinsdorf. If I'm wrong, I promise you I will come on here and own up to every bit of it. If we get sold to a great new ownership group and they start doing things well, I will be the one who says I was completely wrong about this whole situation. But I don't think I am right now. I really don't, and I don't think you're wrong. I mean, we're in agreement, and it all seems way too specific and intentional for how to do this without actually selling the team, but stir up a fear that could lead to this team moving under a new ownership group that makes Reinsdorf seem like
specifically what Reinsdorf said when he asked for the $2 billion for the 78 was, well, I would never move the team, but new owners, they might find it necessary. That's exactly what he said.
That's what I said.
It's like, I mean, you're an actor in Act One. we do all this, and here it's like, if there was a gun in Act One, it better go off in Act Two. And that's exactly what we've got here.
Yeah, I don't even think it's even like an interesting conspiracy. I think it's very clear to see the BS that's happening here.
It will. Now, I will say this: it should bring out other interested parties. There are billionaires in Chicago who are already involved with sports teams across the country in ownership. Several of them. It might bring a call to Reinsdorf from one or two of them about, geez, can we talk about this? And if the money, if there's enough money to overcome the tax situation, I think he just emotionally hates to pay taxes, just hates it. So it would have to be an overpay on that. But and I waited overnight. I mean, we're doing this at 10:30 Central on Friday morning after the news came out on Thursday afternoon. And I waited overnight for some new information. Now, unfortunately, because the Trib, you'd think, would have sources all over the damn place, and the Sun-Times too. I haven't seen anything from the Sun-Times beat writer or from the Trib beat writer. Those guys should have all kinds of people they can talk to on the sly and get updates and realities. There's no update today at all, none, and that I find unusual. That neither paper didn't say there was anything new on the score. ESPN has connections all over in the White Sox. It's just out there. It's a weird situation. I think we're on the record not believing it. On the other hand, the good thing is, if we're wrong, it means he really sold the team. So it's good.
Yeah, true. If we're wrong, it means he made an informed decision on what to do for the future of this franchise. So I would love to be wrong. I would absolutely love it. But exactly what you said is right. If you are a bajillionaire right now, there's nothing better than buying a sports franchise. It is extremely, they are so inflated, and they're just going to keep inflating and inflating. And this is something that's been going on since Ballmer paid $2 billion for the Clippers for no reason. The value of these teams has just skyrocketed. It's a great investment right now. It's a great investment.
Well, it's also a huge tax ripoff, which is, I'm sure, why Reinsdorf got involved with the teams, because of this double depreciation thing that they get with players.
Absolutely.
You can make a lot of money. You can have a lot of money coming in, and on paper lose a lot of money. And if you're involved in other businesses like Reinsdorf in big real estate commercial real estate, uh, then that's a write-off against what your other businesses made. So it's a huge, it creates an income stream from your taxes, actually. So there are a lot of things, a lot of good reasons to run it. Now, there are some bad reasons because the TV deals are starting to go to crap. But Reinsdorf and Wirtz have put together their own whole channel, which is an interesting situation in Chicago. RCN, which we have, is going to carry them. So we'll have the Bulls and the Blackhawks, and then come spring, the White Sox. So far, Comcast isn't, and I think Comcast is by far the biggest cable outfit.
Gotta be
in the metro. So that's interesting, and maybe he, I mean, it's anything's possible. But I think the specific thing that we leaked with Dave Stewart, he probably move it to Nashville because he wants to have Nashville stuff. The other thing with Stewart is somebody mentioned Oakland. He's born and bred in Oakland, and his playing days, that's when he was great. I mean, his best years by far were with the A's. There's some emotional attachment there, and there's a ballpark waiting.
I think if you're seriously trying to sell this team, so many billionaires, multi-hundred millionaires would be interested in buying sports franchises or pieces of sports franchises, whether they're American or overseas, because we now see a lot of people from overseas getting involved in sports franchises as well. If you're serious about getting the best offer for this team and figuring all that out, you don't go this route with the Dave Stewart thing and this, obviously if it's a leak, quote unquote, if it's a leak, you didn't go with that. But if it's an intentional leak, you did. And I just think it makes no sense. I mean, if you are seriously considering selling this team, you go out and you say, look, call, give us an offer. Let's talk. I'm ready to go. Because then your bidding wars start, your big people get involved, But the way this happened, it just seems like a total smokescreen for whatever's really happening behind the scenes, which I think is Reinsdorf trying a new version of veiled threats to get the money he needs for the 78.
Of course, the legislature's out, I guess, until January, so nothing's going to happen there. It wasn't going to happen anyway. I do not see the governor capitulating, no matter what kind of crap Reinsdorf tries to pull off. The mayor, on the other hand, is a blithering idiot. But the city has no money. The city's running huge negative budget. Unless you're going to close all the schools or do something exciting like that, it just makes no sense. The city doesn't have it. And they talk, you just maintain the same hotel tax. Hotel tax could go to schools. It could go to police. I mean, what's the relationship? People don't come to Chicago, or some people don't come to Chicago because it's dangerous. Well, use that money to more police, and you won't have this dangerous thing anymore. It's, I don't know, but we should move on. We don't know. I mean, we have to say we don't know anything. We're guessing, like the whole of White Sox fandom is guessing today.
Well, on that note, let's take a break here. Let's come back and let's talk some playoff baseball. I don't want to spoil this.
White Sox players in the playoffs.
I don't want to spoil this for our listeners before the second half, but I am going to admit right here that we are not in the playoffs. So the second half we will be talking about other teams because the White Sox are. I'm still fingers crossed for the World Series, but as of right now, we are not in it. So we're going to take a break. Hang in there. We'll be right back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. We Reinsdorfed our first half of this podcast, as we often must do, because he's always up to nonsense and garbage. But let's talk about playoff baseball. There is an AL Central team kind of still in it.
Not for long, I don't think.
I heard an interesting thing from Tim Kirchin today, which I think does kind of tell me that Cleveland's pretty much done. Cleveland's starters this year were 50 and 57. They are only the fourth team ever to make the playoffs with a starting rotation with a losing record. Ever.
Yeah, and it's all injury related. It's not like Cleveland can't develop pitchers. They're probably the best in the major leagues at developing pitchers, but they've had so many injuries to pitchers.
And this is a completely different series if Shane Bieber's healthy. It's a completely different series if Bieber's healthy, because then you have a certifiable ace who is used to big time situations.
Even steps down if Tristan McKenzie recovered from his injury properly instead of just losing everything. If he was still Tristan McKenzie, he could mow through a Yankee lineup. When he's on, he's unhittable. I also think that with a guy like Bybee, I think Bybee's a really good pitcher. I just think Bybee's a really good game 2 or 3 pitcher. And I think you have a different outcome if this kid isn't tasked with being the ace that has to get you through the playoffs. I think if you have Shane Bieber out there showing the youngins how it's done, this series goes a different way. I think it's too much pressure on Bybee to be the ace. He was obviously livid when he was taken out of the game early the other day. And I probably would have been livid too, because you can't control as the pitcher your Gold Glove nominated shortstop nominated that day, dropping the most routine infield fly ball in the history of infield fly balls. You can't. There's nothing you can do about that. That inning should have been over. They blew it for him, and then he gets taken out of the game. I get why he's upset. I think Cleveland has no chance of winning this series. I think it is down to 0. You never know, but I how they do that little less than 1%.
Yeah,
that's where we are.
I don't see where, and I honestly don't think the Yankees are that good. The AL in this postseason has just kind of crapped the bed. The Baltimore just getting embarrassed out of the first round, Houston getting embarrassed out of the first round. I obviously loved seeing the AL Central teams who would not be there if they didn't get to play the White Sox 13 times. I loved seeing them win those series. It was really exciting, but none of them can win the World Series. So it was kind of just getting past teams that maybe could win the World Series. And now we're left with the Yankees and the Guardians. Cleveland, I think, is pretty depleted. I just don't see them coming back from this. And I truly don't think the Yankees are that good, but I do think at this point they're going to the World Series. I don't know that they could beat either National League team that is remaining. They could, but I just think the AL really has had kind of a terrible postseason in terms of getting your best team in its best shape to the World Series to face off against the NL champion. It's been a real. Cleveland has looked completely dead at Yankee Stadium. Garrett Cole had a great start to his start, but they did what they needed to do against Garrett Cole, and it still didn't pan out in their favor. They made more mistakes later in the game, more errors. This is a team that needs defense and needs decent.
Led the major leagues in defense. Theoretically, the best defensive team in the game, and they've not looked good at all. We should point out Yankees probably going to the World Series. Old White Sox Carlos Rodon, who had a bad first game in the playoffs, looked absolutely lights out. This last time, it was the old Carlos with that slider that is just impossible to hit. And another one, Tommy Kahnle, has.
I guess what I'll say about Rodon is when he was lights out, I actually didn't even think he was that good. I think Cleveland just can't. I just don't think they have the offense. I don't think they have. They obviously have some offense in Kwan and Ramirez, but I just don't think they can handle a good starter on a pretty good day. And you can't go to the World Series if you can't handle that. You know,
Yeah. Well,
I didn't see anything.
Speaking of the offense, Quan has been unbelievable. Just like an automatic hit every time he comes up.
Yeah, he lives
Ramirez
on base.
has been the opposite. And the big stars have not done well. Judge finally hit a homer, 10 games into the playoffs or something. He's been terrible. Ramirez had all these opportunities to win games with multiple people on base and did not. I mean, he did not come through. And he finally hit a homer when it was meaningless on Thursday night with the bases empty. Cut it down to a three-run lead.
Really, I think this is kind of a postseason to study for stars not getting it done. I think it's been an interesting postseason. Seeing Bobby Witt Jr. do absolutely nothing after what would be an MVP season if you weren't going up against a home run juggernaut in Aaron Judge. Seeing Aaron Judge do nothing, unless there's guys on base, Shohei Ohtani not done Shohei Ohtani things. Betts and Freeman have had some moments, but haven't really. Lindor had some big moments early on.
Lindor had the huge grand slam, but overall, not so hot.
I mean, I will say he made a defensive play yesterday. Clearly, when those Gold Glove nominations came out,
that
he was offended.
That was amazing.
I mean, that's as good of a play as you'll ever see a shortstop make. He was kind of, I think, the front runner in the NL to win the Gold Glove, and he was not nominated. The Gold Glove nominations, of course, are insane this year.
They're always a joke. I mean, Nicky Lopez got nominated, which is nice for the White Sox to have something. But Nicky, I don't know how many games he played. We'd have to look it up, but he didn't even play that much second base. He was playing shortstop. He was all over. And he did not have a good season. And by the defensive metrics, depending on what metric you use, he was kind of third among second basemen, but the two ahead of him, it's like they're up here, and he's, Jimenez, who was the other one in the American League. But anyhow, they're up here, and Lopez was way down here and barely above 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Depending which metric he was below.
And Lindor getting snubbed. And Juan Soto getting nominated. I mean, that just tells you right there. If you go through the highlight reels going around of Juan Soto's defense right now are an absolute joy to watch. Because, of course, they are not highlights. They are lowlights. And you watch these, and I'm not saying that a great fielder can't make a mistake from time to time. Juan Soto is not even an average fielder in Major League Baseball. He is not. There's the fact that guy is nominated for a Gold Glove tells you everything you need to know about the Gold Gloves this year. It's a joke. I mean, in the NL side, you had 5 Diamondbacks get nominated for Gold Gloves. You had more Rockies, Diamondbacks, and Dodgers than Padres, who were in a lot of positions a very good defensive team. Just an absolute joke. The NL side, you've got the Dodgers and the Mets. This series is 2-1 Dodgers right now. At the time of recording, they're going to square off again tonight and tomorrow night. I think this series is a little more open than the AL, but I do think the miracle run for the Mets is running its course. I don't see a world. I mean, the Dodgers are up 2-1 with Ohtani not getting it done most of the time. If you're not going to beat the Dodgers in that circumstance, you're probably just not going to beat the Dodgers. So and now the Dodgers are back to where their pitching situation looks good. The guy you kind of need to beat is Walker Buehler, and they didn't. In fact, they got shut out during a Buehler game. So I don't see a world where the Mets come back against Yamamoto and then Jack Flaherty again. It just doesn't seem like something that's going to happen, which sets us up for, I think, potentially the World Series that the TV networks really, 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 really want.
Yeah. See, they got to be salivating in the studios. Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure they were sitting around. They probably had a list of, okay, if the Dodgers and Yankees make the World Series, here's everyone's holiday bonuses. If the Mets and the Guardians make the World Series, here's the list of everyone who's getting laid off. because the differences in viewership between those two series is probably as big of a gap that you would see in Major League Baseball.
Particularly Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland is a very small market. The Mets, I mean, I can see if you're a TV people, you're not real unhappy about the Subway Series.
No,
because
Subway Series is
the number one
actually
market
the
and
second
everybody
best
is
option.
interested.
But Subway Series is your next best option.
Historically, it's Dodgers versus Yankees. Back in baseball time, I mean, I was growing up. It seemed like every year it was the Dodgers and the Yankees. I was a Dodgers fan, so unfortunately, it was usually the Yankees, but that ended up on top. But meanwhile, White Sox players over here. The one Matt who has done extremely well in the playoffs is Jose Quintana, and I'm a huge fan of Jose, and I think he's pitching tonight. This will be Thursday night. So I've got these hopes when he or Rodon pitch. I go, boy, I hope he shuts them out, whoever it is, for 6 innings, and then they get beaten to death in the seventh night. Because I'm never rooting for the team that they're pitching for, but I root for them individually. I like both of those guys a lot, and in both cases, well, the White Sox got a good return for Jose back in that original sell-off back in the mid-teens. Because
on the other side, you've got Michael Kopech still pitching for the Dodgers and looking absolutely phenomenal.
And even when he gets hit Wednesday night, he got hit. I mean, the first two guys hit the ball hard, but they're okay. We got it. They're 5 feet from the wall in center field, kind of thing, and then he'll do one of his just blow it by somebody as he did. He hasn't given up a run. Has he given up a run since he went to the Dodgers? I think he did one.
I think
one in September.
Yeah. I mean, he's just been electric. There was a little bit of worry when he was coming out in the postseason about the stakes of it all, the pressure. He did look like maybe that wasn't going to be a good thing for him, and then something clicked. I mean, against the Padres.
So far in the World Series, they're using him low pressure. He's not at the back end.
Yeah. They've been saving Trinan to close out games, which makes sense. He's an experienced guy. He's not my guy, but he's an experienced guy. So they haven't had to use Kopech in the really high leverage situations, although they did a little bit against San Diego, and he rose to the occasion. I mean, just looked phenomenal, striking out guys on 102-mile-an-hour pitches and key moments. He's looked really good. That was a brilliant pickup by the Dodgers, and as we've said before, a guy that we knew was going to flourish when he went somewhere else. So it is nice to see him in LA pitching like the guy we always knew he was going to be, and that's when you take a guy with insane natural ability and finally give him some great coaching. And I do think Mark Prior is a great pitching coach. I mean, I think Mark Prior's days are probably numbered with the Dodgers because he's such a good pitching coach that somebody else is going to start looking at him to take over a team entirely. I mean, he's so brilliant, and the stuff he does, the specifics he works with these guys, and getting pitches in their arsenal that have been struggling, getting them up to shape so they have more pitches in their arsenal. The grip work he does with pitchers is just extraordinary. And, as we said before, the White Sox have no analytics, and the Dodgers have as advanced of analytics as you can possibly have for the game of baseball. And that is going to benefit young pitchers who've had bad coaching and no analytic help. When you go into that circumstance and you see what this could have been the whole time, you're going to try to play at a level that keeps you in that level of baseball. You do not want to go back to a bad team after this.
In fairness, Kopech had really turned it around before he left the White Sox. He was terrible earlier in the year, but in July, he was lights out in July. I don't know. He gave up a run in July and then just continued that and got even better with Los Angeles. So, but yeah, it's great to see them doing well. All of them, all of them. And I guess it's all pitchers. We don't have any ex-White Sox batters on any of the teams.
I mean, there probably is one hidden somewhere, but it's certainly not a starter. There's nobody starting for any of these teams who's ever swung a bat for the White Sox. I can't think of who that one would be, but it seems like a lot of guys have come through the White Sox and left the White Sox. So there might be one in there somewhere. But yeah, it's mostly pitchers. And they have all very much risen to the occasion. With Rodon, though, I do have a thing. I don't think the Yankees is a good place for Rodon. I really don't. And the main reason for that is I don't think he looks good without a beard. I don't. I think Carlos Rodon with a beard, one of the best looking guys in all of baseball. But with the Yankee rule where you can only have a mustache, which he did have for a little while, he rocked it. He looked great. But now in his full clean shavenness, I'm like, I think you got to try to go somewhere else with this next contract. I think you got to go to a bearded team.
Apparently the Dodgers have no problem because Kopech looks like a young Santa Claus.
On the opposite side. Okay, so listeners know at this point that I work for the Dodgers. And, I try to keep my ear to the ground on who the women at work are most interested in on the team. And, when Kopech came over, I was like, okay, Kopech is going to be, all the women are going to be like, thank you, Will, for the White Sox giving us Michael Kopech so we can look at this guy. The beard, man, the temperature has cooled. The temperature on Michael Kopech has cooled.
Yeah,
the temperature on Jack Flaherty. Beard. Jack Flaherty is trending as high as you can trend amongst the ladies in the workplace. Kopech's beard. I can't tell you how many times I've heard women say, "Oh, I love Michael Kopech. Isn't he doing great?" Yeah, but that beard. Oh. I'm like, if you're not winning over the office ladies at Dodger Stadium, then you need to talk to the stylist and get this going, because it's a captive audience. It's pretty easy to be crushed on by some of the people in the workplace, and Kopech's beard is not doing him favor. So actually, it's possible they need to do a full swap.
That's wrong. Santa's beard is really very attractive on an old man. Like, it's a ZZ Top beard.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think I don't think that Michael Kopech's problem is that he has a beard. I think Michael Kopech's problem is that he has one of the gnarliest, dirtiest looking beards. And if he had like a bohemian personality, it would be kind of different. When Brian Wilson had that big beard for San Francisco, but he ended up being the weirdest guy to ever play the game of baseball and was going on, the late night talk shows and doing all sorts of crazy antics and stuff. That made sense. But Kopech's kind of just like a regular guy. And yeah, the ZZ Top beard, it's not working. Clean shaven Rodon, ZZ Top, Michael Kopech, it's not working. I'm not saying they should have stayed on the White Sox, but I'm saying if they did, they'd have a better facial hair situation going on, I think. That is about all the time we have for this week. Do you have any more thoughts before we head into... We probably won't record again until the World Series or after. So do you have anything else before we sign off? Do you have a prediction? Give me a prediction about what's going to happen. Give me who's going to win these two series and who's going to win the World Series and how many games.
Yankees are going to win this series.
4 games? 4 games or
Cleveland
more?
Will win one somewhere, 5 games maybe.
Okay. Yankees in 5.
Dodgers in 6.
Dodgers in 6. Okay. That's not good for my work schedule, but I'm in agreement. I agree it's going to be Dodgers in 6. So you've got a Yankees-Dodgers World Series. That will be a home field advantage series for Los Angeles. So 4 games would be played at Dodger Stadium. Who do you predict will win?
I'm trying to think pitching rotation. If the Yankees win a day sooner, they have a little more rest time to organize how they're going to do their pitchers. The Dodgers are going Yamamoto and Flaherty, probably their two best starters now for games 4 and 5.
Not
so that's not a
probably.
big deal. That yeah,
Not probably. Those are the best starters. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that really means that they've got enough time to set up too, because they're not going to be used in 6 and 7 if there are 6 and 7. So both teams will be able to go to their what absolutely they want. I know either Flaherty or Yamamoto. Presumably, I would think Flaherty for the Dodgers against Garrett Cole in Game 1, and then Yamamoto against Rodon in Game 2. Rodon's looked better than their other starters. Besides,
the only thing that I think could change that is I think because Yamamoto is going tonight. I think if Yamamoto does really well and the Dodgers win tonight, I think there's a chance they don't throw Flaherty in Game 5. And I think because the Dodgers bullpen has been historically brilliant, and I think there's a world where they throw a bullpen game in Game 5 to try to save Flaherty for Game 1. It obviously won't happen if they lose tonight. But I think if they go up 3-1, there's a chance the Dodgers will throw a bullpen game instead of going with Flaherty there to try to set up a better pitching situation for them in the World Series. But okay, so Yankees-Dodgers World Series, who's winning how many games?
I think, and I hate the Yankees so much that this influences my thoughts. I think the Dodgers win, despite their pitching woes, shortage of starters. Because obviously, to get these 7-game series, you really need 4 reliable starters. They don't have it. The Yankees are much closer to having that. The Dodgers in 6.
I'm going to take the Dodgers in 6 as well. So unfortunately, we won't have a big rivalry here. But yeah, so we both think Dodgers over Yankees in 6. That's our prediction. Got to tune in next time to see if we have to eat that a little bit. But I don't think we will. I think Dodgers in 6 as well. Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you next time right here on Sharing Sox.